Hi, everybody. Today I am really excited because I get to talk to Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who is one of the world's leading experts and researchers on fasting, the ketogenic diet, calorie restriction, and metabolic therapy, and probably many other things in all of his years of research. He is currently a professor at Boston College, and his main research focuses on mechanisms by which metabolic therapy manages chronic diseases, which we are in a society which suffer from many, many chronic diseases. He's done research such as epilepsy, neurodegenerative lipid storage diseases, and cancer, especially cancer. I was just with him at the TTAC. And amazing things. I really wish so many more researchers at big universities were going down this path because it's so successful. But one of the first things I just wanted to ask you, Doc, was it seems simple to us, but it's still confusing to a lot of people out there. What is a ketogenic diet, in your opinion, or how could you explain that?
Well, thanks, Dr. Group. It's nice to be here and speak with you today. Ketogenic diets have been around since the 1920s, basically, maybe even earlier than that, but at least, Wilder at Mayo Clinic was the one we recognize as kind of adapting this whole thing. It was mostly done for epilepsy. And it was a way, because if you stop eating, seizures used to go away. And in fact, we've seen this. We've done it in mice, people. We've seen it in a lot of people. He just developed a diet that would create a physiological state similar to therapeutic fasting. Because as you and I know, and many other people, we can only fast for so long before we enter into the pathological state of starvation, which is certainly a very unhealthy condition. But ketogenic diets are designed to keep people in this kind of state that you would be in if you were just water-only fasting. But it's got to be done very carefully. If you don't do it carefully, you throw your body out of this homeostatic state and could create some adverse reactions and things like this. So it's always been a delicate balance, trying to remain healthy, yet in a state of therapeutic fasting. And ketogenic diets are different than the Atkins diet. Atkins diets are also produce ketones. But if the blood sugar is not down sufficiently, the ketones are excreted from the body as fast as they're made. So you don't get the full therapeutic benefit of ketones when you're on an Atkins diet as you would on a ketogenic diet, which simply has generally less protein and even less carbohydrate than would an Atkins diet. So there are differences between Atkins diets and ketogenic diets. And as you know, and as we've researched and found, every aspect of the ketogenic diet is important. The type of carbs that are there, as few as there are, the types of proteins that are consumed, and also the types of lipids. So there's a lot of variation on this. And I think it's an emerging field, and I think we need to still know a lot more about this.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to ask you more about those proteins and fats and stuff later on, but just a general definition of some of the things that you're working on, and that was a great answer. What is, because I still get a lot of questions, and there's still a lot of information out there, and disinformation too, and alternate information on metabolic therapy. In your mind and in your terms, and in your research, can you explain what metabolic therapy actually is?
Yeah, well, I think in cancer, we have to put it in context for what are the other therapies that we have. You have chemotherapy, and now we have the new thing called immunotherapy, and now our focus has been metabolic therapy. All right, so what is the purpose of all of these different kinds of therapy? So before we define better what metabolic therapy is, okay, what does chemotherapy and radiation therapy, the design is to stop the proliferation of cancer cells. And in the case of radiation therapy, you create reactive oxygen species and you blow apart the DNA in the dividing cells, and thereby try to regulate the growth of the tumor cell. But you also destroy any normal cell that might be in the environment, also destroying its capability of proliferating as well. Or, and if you don't outright kill the normal cell, you put that cell at risk for developing a dysregulated growth at a future point by damaging its respiration. Chemotherapy is a broad range of different therapies that use toxic chemicals to either stop DNA synthesis or disrupt the cytoskeleton in the cell so it can't divide. And immunotherapies basically are using various types of cells of our immune system to track down and kill and stop the growth of cancer cells through an immunological reaction. So all of these therapies, radiation, chemo, and immuno, are all designed to stop the growth of the proliferating tumor cell. Okay, metabolic therapy does, the end game is exactly the same. You stop the growth of the proliferating tumor cell. The main difference is, in order to divide, grow, and proliferate, you need energy. Okay, so what metabolic therapy does is simply starve the tumor cell of those needs to proliferate. So it's very non-toxic when it comes to a comparison with the other. All of the therapies are designed to stop the proliferation of the cancer cell. The metabolic therapy is the only therapy that starves the tumor of the fuels that it needs to grow and transitions the rest of the body off to a fuel, ketone bodies, which the tumor cells can't use as a fuel because they have defective respiration. Metabolic therapy is the most elegant, non-toxic, cost-effective strategy available for the management of cancer. And some of the mechanisms are similar. We simply stop DNA proliferation. We stop the same kinds of things, but we can do it without toxicity. So this puts it into the perspective of the other therapies.
Yeah, and we're actually starting to find out that not only cancer, but many other degenerative diseases, autoimmune diseases, and many other things are benefiting from a ketogenic diet or from metabolic therapies because it really gives the body a little bit of a break and a chance to heal itself as well. And you're taking away that glucose, like you said, that's actually the fuel for the cancer. Whenever you're using the metabolic therapy, and I was just talking to Dr. Goldhammer out in California about different types of fasting. What are your thoughts on water-only fasting versus the 5-2 fasting or the intermittent fasting? And a lot of it is being done with some of that intermittent fasting, for example, is done with a ketogenic diet. Have you noticed any specific program that you like or that you recommend as far as the fasting is concerned, or the calorie restriction, or going down those lines?
Yeah, no, I think those are important points. In our view, we use the glucose ketone index a biomarker system to assess whether or not you are putting your body in. I think the goal of water-only fasting, the goal of all of these different kinds of fasts, is to try to get therapeutic ketosis. And, usually that's done by water-only fasting. That's the most effective way to do this. I think if you can, it's hard as hell to do it, though. I mean, as you know, most people have no willpower to do this. They fear it. They think they're going to die. Believe me, I have to deal with this all the time. People say, I can't live without food for 3 days. The issue, of course, is that it's that hard part of getting over the original addiction to glucose and getting off of that glucose addiction. Listen, it's very hard, especially in this day and age with the diets and lifestyles that people have. But to be honest with you, water-only therapeutic fasting is probably the best way and the most effective way to bring a person into therapeutic ketosis. However, I've learned from discussions with other people that you can get there by more than one way. Some people can go cold turkey. If you've done it a number of times, going cold turkey is not so bad. If you've never done it before, I've had one, David Eigen told me, in his method of getting into therapeutic ketosis with water-only fasting is to do a ketogenic diet first. A calorie-restricted ketogenic diet takes the sting out of the cold turkey going right into this. Then after about 2 or 3 days on a restricted ketogenic diet, he then stops and goes completely into water-only therapeutic fasting. And in his opinion, and I think he's probably right, it's a more gradual entry into the zone of therapeutic ketosis. After you've done this a few times, maybe you can in fact just go cold turkey. But for those of most people, you can enter into it. And then once you're in the state, it depends on, I would say 4 to 5, 7 days is probably really good if you can get yourself into a 7-day water, and then you measure your glucose ketone index. And of course, if you're at 1 or below, 1.0 or below, you're in a good state of therapeutic ketosis. And my students who are young, in their 20s, they get into these states relatively quick, and they get GKI values below 1. They're like 0.6, 0.7. I mean, this is unbelievable. Cancer patients have a much, much more difficult time doing this. Young, healthy people who don't have any chronic disease and things like this, they get in. Chronic disease, are older, cancer. This is a much more difficult state. Now, as far as intermittent fasting is good. There's just certain fastings are more therapeutic than others. Yeah, I think if you can go 24 hours twice a week without eating, I think that's excellent. I think it gives your body a rest. I think all of these different fastings, there's no fasting that's bad for you. Let's put it that way. It's just different degrees of good and more powerful. So I think, and people can work around these different things. And the problem is some people go overboard. They get into this state and they feel that once they're in this, they can't leave it. You got to be careful you don't enter into anorexia. You have to be careful that you don't alter your body in such a way that you overdo all this stuff, and then it becomes less healthy. So, but I think what you mentioned, intermittent, these kinds of things are all good as long as you keep them in perspective, I think.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on that. It's there's more and more information in just people trying different things as well. I always recommend, starting off and giving yourself a week or, for that matter, if you're going to be doing a 7-day water fast, take 7 days before, and then the refeeding is 7 days as well after the water fast. I just finished an 18-day water-only fast, and it was an incredible experience, although I will, as a disclaimer, and I'm sure you'll agree that, if you're on medications, you're pregnant, there's a lot of contraindications to water fasting out there. Make sure you check with your healthcare practitioner, or even go one step further and do medically supervised water-only fasting. So that's good to know. What are your thoughts on meat? I get this question all the time. Gluten, meat, and dairy on a ketogenic diet, because there's a lot of people out there. I mean, getting rid of all the carbohydrates and the sugars and all that, people are always saying, well, what am I supposed to eat then? I mean, and there's also the practitioners out there that want to keep you a little bit restricted on the amount of fats that you're putting in your body. Some conflicting information on that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's very individual. I think all of us are not the same. And again, we follow the glucose ketone index. People always ask me, can I eat this meat? Can I have this cream? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I said, well, first get yourself into a good GKI zone. And that requires, as you said, you do water only for a while. And I agree with you 100% with some people shouldn't do this based on their medications or physiological state. But if you can do that, then okay, I'm in the zone. I'm doing well. What can I eat? Can I take some meat now? Can I? And the problem, if you take too much meat, the amino acids are metabolized to glucose through gluconeogenesis. So you can actually lower your blood sugar and become less therapeutic when you take too much meat. Again, you're back into the Atkins zone. So again, I always tell people, do whatever you want with GKI. And if it throws your GKI out, then don't do that. It's just work within your GKI. We find that citrus fruits like grapefruit can keep you, doesn't throw you out of GKI. There's certain, on a banana, on the other hand, would completely throw you out of the zone. And then, of course, what alcohol can you drink while you're in these therapeutic? Some people say, hey, man, I got to have some wine. I got to have some, and we tested all that. We tested not every kind of an alcohol, but we certainly tested red wines, white wines, beer. None of the dark reds won't throw you out of ketosis. If you drink, I don't know if you drink a whole bottle of this stuff, but certainly a glass isn't going to throw you out. Some dry whites, like very expensive champagne, and we've tested this on people, and we know this is I'm not saying everybody has to test themselves. So we do it with individuals, and we take, so you get a beautiful GK value, and then try this wine, and you drink a cup of the wine, and you remain in the zone. Wow, I mean, this is pretty good. On the other hand, if it throws you way out, then I would say don't drink that. You can't do that. So at least this is a biomarker to let people know what they can and cannot do. And without that, it all becomes guesswork. It all becomes guesswork. So you got to measure the blood glucose and the blood ketones to really know whether or not you're in therapeutic ketosis and what you can or cannot do to remain there.
I say the same thing. I mean, when we recommend someone that's doing either a ketogenic diet or water-only fasting, or we're supervising, and we actually do the blood tests once or twice a day for ketones and glucose. So what about the people that are using the urine strips for ketones? I mean, are you recommending that if someone wants to go through and measure this and adjust it with different types of foods, or try to figure out what they can do to stay in a ketosis state, you would recommend that they have the blood glucose kit as well as the ketone kit?
Yeah, I think so. We do urine ketones, but it's only to save the blood strips, because the blood strips are more expensive. But the problem with the urine strip is that it can give you misinformation. Like, for example, if you're on an Atkins diet, I'm really in high ketosis, but you're peeing the ketones out as fast as you're making them. They're not as high in the blood as they would be in the urine. But if you have a water-only fast for 7 days, the urine ketones are probably going to give you an accurate representation of what's going on in your blood. So again, it depends on the physiological state of what you're doing. So, blood ketone, we do it because a lot of people complain the blood strips are too expensive, blood ketone strips, and they would rather use urine strips. It's probably more of an economic thing than anything. But now Keto Mojo is coming out with the strips of 99 cents. And that might be more appropriate. If you're going to prick your finger to get the blood for the glucose, you might as well take advantage of the same blood to get your ketones.
Exactly.
I mean, why are you going to waste the blood and pee on a strip? Also, morning values, oftentimes blood sugar is higher in the morning. We call it the dawn effect. And if you take it, you might not get as good a reading as you would late in the morning or late in the afternoon. So, like for our cancer recommendations for cancer, we put cancer patients into the hyperbaric oxygen when they have the best GKI values, when they're 1.0 or below. And then this is the time to go into the chamber. So so we use that. We use the GKI as a valuable index to know when is the best time to take certain treatments. And you can do the same thing even if you don't have cancer. You can still do these things.
Any other food? That was very interesting. I've never heard the grapefruit would not alter your GKI. I mean, I know everybody's different, like you said. Are there any other foods that you can give us for the video, or drinks that you've seen that do not affect GKI?
Yeah, well, I think the Charlie Foundation and my colleague Beth Zupek-Kenya on the Charlie Foundation website, I believe they have a list of foods and their glycemic index. And grapefruit has a very low glycemic index, loaded with vitamin C, as opposed to, say, an orange, which is sweet. Certain things. You can put stevia on a grapefruit and still get sweetness without throwing you out of the GKI. So low glycemic foods are probably best for maintaining therapeutic ketosis. And then you can just go down the list of foods, and some people like this, they don't like that. They can just mix and match whatever they might do, and then they can validate that with a GKI, and then they can know for sure that, hey, and then you have a bigger variety of foods that you're able to take without throwing yourself out of the zone too far. Everybody goes out of the zone a little bit here and there, but the idea is that you can feel comfortable in taking charge of your body and know that you're maintaining the right parameters that are going to give you the health benefits of therapeutic ketosis.
So do you always recommend that people start off with water-only fasting, or do you custom tailor to the individual and have some people just, like you were talking about before, just go into ketosis naturally on a ketogenic diet?
Yeah, I think it's individual. It's like anything. If you have ice cold water, some people jump in right away. They don't. Other people have to gradually put themselves in. You know what I'm saying? So it's an individual thing. I think everybody has to decide whether they want to jump in with both feet or you want to take it a little bit slow, and that would be the individual's. Some people might, during the gradual transition, if you're not in the best of health, you might want to go gradual transition and then see how your body handles it. And then you eventually enter into the whole state.
Right. So what about the long-term ketogenic diet? Have you seen any negative or contraindicative reports or experienced anything like that because that's kind of a question. And some people are saying, well, it could be dangerous to be on a long-term ketogenic diet. And people, a lot of people out there that are just watching YouTube videos and just individuals that have no scientific background at all that are saying, I'm doing all this. Yeah. And they're really not recommending good things, good organic things or, there's a lot of confusion that I'm hearing on my end from people that are going online and getting a lot of misinformation. And it's a question that comes up, how long can I be on a ketogenic diet?
No, very important. It all depends on whether the diet is nutritionally balanced or not. You could, if you just eat certain things and you don't balance it correctly, you can put yourself at risk for electrolyte imbalances. Your heart starts to beat, pounding heart. I would say you need to work with experts that have the knowledge to tell a person, hey, it's time to get off this. Your body is not responding. There are some other people like Dom, my friend Dom D'Agostino, who's like in constant therapeutic ketosis. He's he's very rigid about what he eats and things like this. And he says he's always in ketosis. I don't know, but. And then we have children. The best information we have is in the epilepsy field, where we have had children for 2 or 3 years in ketosis to manage their epileptic seizures. And of course, they work closely with the physicians and the knowledgeable people that work with children with epilepsy, because these children need to stay in these zones. Because if they fall out of the zone, they go into rebound seizure right away, breakthrough seizures. And therefore, they have to remain in ketosis. So, and maintaining vitamin and mineral balances is extremely important. Because, yes, there are adverse effects of electrolyte imbalances, vitamin mineral imbalances that will influence bone density. There's issues of constipation. There's been different kinds of issues associated with certain people who haven't been able to maintain a well-balanced nutritional state. So there are blood tests that periodically should be done. If you plan long-term ketosis, you're going to need a good blood test once a month, I would say. So, and that will allow the attending physician and the healthcare providers to know, hey, you're falling out here and there. Therefore, we need to adjust your diet in such and such a way to bring you back into the correct balance. If you just do it on your own and you fall out of these balances, you could put yourself at harm. So again, we're looking here. Don't forget, I view this whole thing as medicine. This is an alternative, at least in my view, my field of cancer management. Toxic drugs. So it is itself is it's medicine we're dealing with here. It's just that it's not produced by a pharmaceutical company, but it's still nevertheless a medicine to deal with a particular disease. And if you don't use the right medicine in the right combinations, like anything, you could put yourself at risk for adverse effects. So now there's a whole world out there, people using this for weight loss and all these other kinds of things. That might be good if you're perfectly healthy and, you don't have any chronic disease or imbalances, going into therapeutic ketosis periodically is probably not going to be harmful. But when you have a chronic disease and you're trying to manage this disease, this is a medicine. And you better know how to use that medicine so you don't produce harm to yourself.
Do the children, are they doing blood glucose and ketone testing twice a day, mid-morning, mid-afternoon? The ones that have been long-term in ketosis?
No, most of them are not. Because the little kids don't like to have their finger pricked. Yeah. They scream and yell. So it's basically, because we've dealt, I worked in this field a long time. We know experts, and we it's possible. But nevertheless, we, basically, some of my colleagues have found if you keep low, steady glucose on these children, they usually have pretty good seizure management, really, really good. And it's very clear if you fall out of ketosis, the glucose spikes. Many children, not all, within a short period of minutes, you'll have a breakthrough seizure. Despite the fact that you have been seizure managed for, say, months, all of a sudden that one kid takes a drink of the juice or the Coke or the bite of the cake, they have a blood sugar spike, and within minutes they have a breakthrough seizure. So it's incredible. With epilepsy, it tells you right off the bat whether you've fallen out of ketosis or not. It's very striking because you have this epileptic seizure that tells you you're in ketosis. But for the cancer patient or some other patient, you don't see that dramatic instant evidence that you've fallen out of ketosis. So for those patients, they need to be more consistently monitoring their blood sugars and ketones as opposed to the person with epilepsy.
Yeah, and do you recommend that the parents of those children? I've got two young boys; they're super healthy, but I know that how kids are and how they, it's hard for them to eat certain things. Do you recommend that they go to the Charlie Foundation? Is that kind of the starting point to look at the low glycemic foods and kind of and tailor the diet around the low glycemic foods from there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of centers in the world of epilepsy for sure. You have the CHOP Center at UPenn, Dr. Berkovic. She's an expert. She has the keto kitchen down there. They train the parents exactly how to produce and maintain diets for their children. And here in Children's Hospital at Harvard, we have physicians that really know this. I think most of the major hospitals where they have a ketogenic diet clinic associated with the epilepsy, with childhood epilepsy, these guys, they're sharp. They know what to do, how to do it. Don't forget, children. The issue of compliance is not nearly a problem in children as it is in adults, because the parents don't want to see their child seizure. The parents are very compliant with the rules of the diet. And they keep those kids under tight control. But, if you're an adult, some people say, hell, I'd rather have seizures than eat these ketogenic diets. Well, that's that person's opinion. But there's other people that would say, no, I got to keep these seizures under control. And for cancer, you're dealing with a life that seizures in general will not kill you. It could be a very debilitating, uncomfortable experience, but it's certainly not, in most cases, you're not going to die from a seizure. Most cases. But for cancer, this is life-threatening. It's really funny too. It's incredible. Some adults will tell us, oh yeah, I'm very compliant. I'm real. And we look at their GKI, and it's way out of whack. What they do, they cheat on themselves. It's unbelievable. Some people will actually cheat on themselves. It's like, who are you cheating on? I don't care. It's your life, not mine. Yet they, I'm really compliant, and then they're eating a cupcake.
I know.
2 hours later, break. So I mean, these.
Have you seen, like, for instance, you're in ketosis, you are, producing your ketones, and let's say somebody does cheat and eats a cupcake, and then all of a sudden you're back out of it. Does it really take you the 24 to 36 hours usually to get back into a state of ketosis, or how rapidly have you seen with a cheat someone be able to go back into ketosis?
Well, yeah, that's a good point, because what happens as soon as you bite the cupcake or drink the juice, your insulin, you get a massive insulin surge, right? So insulin comes up and glucagon goes down, and glucagon is the hormone that's responsible for making your ketones. So you immediately, it's like a seesaw. Okay, insulin's up, glucagon's down. I'm clearing everything. All the ketones come flying out of my bloodstream. I start peeing them out like crazy, because you don't need them anymore, because glucose has taken over for the ketones. So, but if you already have that balance, it would probably take 24 hours to get, if you stop eating or stop drinking that right away. You have to wait for the insulin to come back down and the glucagon to come back up, and then you bring yourself back into this balance. And that could vary from one person to the next. I'm not saying, but I've had people that every now and then they drop out of it. They need to get a pizza, and they just say, the hell with it, I'm going to go for the pizza, and they'll eat the pizza, and then 2 days later they're back into ketosis. There's just, humans, we have to have a variety. I think a lot of people, variety is as they say, is key to overall general enjoyment of life. We're not like the dog. You give him the same food every single day, he seems to be happy with eating the same food, right? He gobbles it right down, never complains, say, why are you giving me the same food every day? The dog doesn't look at you and say, again, dogs actually suffer from as much cancer as humans. They're actually devastated by cancer. And when we change their diets to ketogenic diets and all meat diets, they do remarkably well. They get really healthy. High glycemic foods are killing the dogs as well as they're killing us too. So dogs and humans, we're both suffering from the same diseases. And the dogs are just getting it. They get the high carb food every single day, sometimes twice a day. Can you believe this? No wonder the damn dogs are all dying at 10 years old, 12 years old. Dogs should be living about 20 years. They shouldn't be dying so early. And half of them are dying from cancer.
Same diseases that you see in humans: thyroid conditions, cancer, constipation. I mean, everything. I mean, we're all the animals. Is there a fast way that you know of to get, aside from just water only fasting? I mean, is there any faster way to get your body into a state of ketosis?
Well, they're developing a lot of ketone supplement drinks now, and some of these kinds of drinks could put you into ketosis. But you have to measure your GKI to know that. So I would say that, and I don't know, there's so many ketone supplements on the market now. How do we know which ones are good and which ones aren't good? And the way you do that is just measure your GKI. Mm-hmm. So if you say, oh, I got this wonderful ketosis drink, I'm drinking this ketosis, and I say, how do you know it's, well, I don't know, it's just a ketosis drink. Well, measure your GKI and see if you're in therapeutic ketosis or not. If you're not, then the drink's no good. It's not that hard.
It takes time, though. You have to go prick your finger and do the blood thing, and it costs money. And
well, that's the whole thing. I mean, how do you know you're going to do that anyway?
Right. Curious to know, with your experience, if you can give some advice to the people that are going to be watching this video, if there's any mistakes that they should be aware of, or what should they not do, let's say, or in your experience, what are some of the mistakes that people have made in the past when they're trying to do either water only fasting or go into a ketogenic diet?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Well, first thing, people should know whether or not they're healthy enough to do this. I think a person who might be glucose addicted for how many years, all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to do this. It's as you said, it's a tough. It's like trying to break an addiction to alcohol, drugs, I mean, you're going to go through a lot of withdrawal. And that withdrawal itself can create some kinds of problems for some people. Do it a little gradual at first. I would do a 24-hour fast to start, see how it feels, all right? And then you're going to enjoy the food really, oh man. And then next week do a 2-day fast, gradually enter into it. And then a 3, and then work yourself up. And just see how your body responds to this. Do you have any? And because I've had people tell me, oh, I got this heart pounding, I got a rash, I got this. It's another very interesting thing. A couple of physicians have reported back to me. It's very about vitamin D. This is vitamin D. People take vitamin D supplements and things. Vitamin D is stored in fat. And when you go on a ketogenic diet, you start burning fat. So your fat is all of a sudden, your vitamin D levels naturally go up under ketogenic diet. So you don't really need to take vitamin D supplements at first, at least for the first, because the vitamin D we've had some people go into vitamin D excess by taking vitamin D supplements while on a ketogenic diet. They went into catastrophically high and burn out because they're losing so much body fat. All this vitamin D stored in the fat is now released into the bloodstream. And then on top of that, you're taking a vitamin D supplement. So you have to look at your whole body. These are a lot of naturopaths, DOs and naturopaths. They love to do all kinds of blood work monitoring. And that's wonderful because this therapy is exactly what we need those guys to do. The MDs at the big hospitals, they don't do, unless you ask, they're not going to do this stuff. Maybe they'll look at a few markers, but they don't look at the whole spectrum of blood markers that you need to know. And I think the more blood markers, C-reactive protein, all the different HDL, LDLs, all these kinds of things, you better monitor everything you possibly can measure in the blood. You should measure when you're doing these therapeutic fasting and this kind of thing. And that'll let you know right away whether you're in balance with respect to the global body of metabolites that you should have. So all of this information is important. And I think that, are you doing this just to lose weight? Are you doing this because you want to manage a disease like diabetes or cancer? It depends on what your objective is to what you're going to need to do.
Okay, are there anything else besides vitamin D that you've noticed that kind of goes out of?
Well, I think long-term therapeutic fasting, you will need some vitamin C. There are certain vitamin B vitamins that you might need, but majority of the vitamins are carried in your liver, in your fat, and the minerals in your bones. So you get a lot of this because we have, as I said, as a species, we've evolved to starve. We're in a very abnormal environment today. The majority of people on the planet, an excess of food. Food excess and wasted high glycemic calories. Our bodies, don't forget, we went through the Ice Age. We went through all these different stages of near starvation. We're extremely well genetically programmed to live long time without food, believe me. So it's just that we never find ourselves in that state. But we evolved to live very, very comfortably. We were always in a state of therapeutic ketosis, but we didn't want to. It's just that we had to be. We didn't want to be there. It's just that was our state. I think that periodically revisiting the past is not such a bad idea to keep your body in a better state of health. I think everybody should think about that. I'm not saying everybody should do it, but I certainly think everybody should know. At least they know about it. Knowing about it can at least give you that information.
I know that one of the beneficial things of water-only fasting is autophagy, and that's still people are still trying to figure out, how the body chooses to work on this area or that area. Would you explain to everybody what your definition of autophagy is, and if you've noticed a difference between the autophagy system during water-only fasting versus autophagy in the ketogenic diet phase?
Autophagy is the recycling of organelles within the cell. So an autophagic, it means self-eating. So, and usually it happens under caloric stress in most normal cells. So what happens is the body has a very interesting surveillance monitoring system. And every cell in the body is designed to perform a specific function at maximal efficiency. Now, if the body is surfeit in calories and energy, a lot of cells will function at less than maximal efficiency. Now, if you go on therapeutic fasting, not only do you get the autophagic capability where the cell itself takes care of its internal metabolism, but some cells will die as the result of this because they have allowed their mitochondria to enter into such a state of disrepair that that eat those cells, and we call that autolytic cannibalism. And I have that in chapter 19 of my book, where the body will actually gobble up inefficient cells and parts of tissues that have been allowed to wear down. And then the nutrients from that are delivered into the circulation. And they're transported throughout the body so that all the cells can feast upon the metabolites of the dead cells. It's unbelievable. Now, this is what we do with cancer. So if you have a big tumor and you go on therapeutic fasting, water only, the body starts turning against that tumor because it itself has deficient metabolism, and the body eats the tumor for the good of the whole. And that's why these water-only fasts are an exceptional way to demolish these tumors. In many cases, you can completely eliminate your cancer by going on these long 21, 30-day fasts. I mean, these poor tumors, they can't handle it. They become food for the rest of the body. You sprinkle in a few drugs and a few carbohydrate restriction, and you kill the whole thing. And you cleanse your whole body. You get really healthy at the same time. You take chemo and your body is all beat up. You have all these things happen, and you can do the same thing if you can fast for 20 days or something like you did, 18 days. I mean, a person with a tumor doing an 18-day fast, that tumor is going to be under severe threat of existence.
So why aren't all the cancer hospitals in the world using that and supervised water-only fasting? And I already know what your answer is going to be on that one.
Well, we all know the answer, but the question is, they all fear what we just said, because they say, oh, my patients are losing body weight. We can't give them a therapy that's going to make them lose more body weight. And I always say, why are they losing their body weight? What are you giving them? Well, they're being poisoned, for crying out loud. I mean, if you're being poisoned, you lose body weight. I mean, nobody gets fat by being poisoned. You got nausea, vomiting, you get all kinds of, fatigue. I mean, nobody's going to go out and want to eat a big pizza when they're being poisoned, right? So the problem is therapeutic fasting conflicts with the toxic poisons that we had one physician say to us, oh yeah, that ketogenic diet it interferes. It doesn't make it makes our chemotherapy less effective. It's like insane, man. You can't, the whole mindset is just like upside down. These poor guys, the problem with these poor physicians, they've never been trained to know how to do this stuff. They've been trained only to use toxic poisons and radiation. They don't know anything else. Not to say they don't want to. It's just that they feel that their training gives them this. You would never do this. I keep telling people, what the hell, you take a poor guy with a brain tumor and you radiate his head? I mean, this is nuts. Especially that it makes it even worse. The poor guys, they die from the adverse effects of the radiation. When you do metabolic therapy, you shrink that tumor down. You can let the surgeon pluck it out. You get so many more years of good quality life. I mean, half the stuff we're doing in these hospitals is just a complete opposite of what you would ever want to do. And the results are 1,600 people a day are dying from cancer in the United States. And it's getting worse. And yet we keep doing this stuff. It's like, why? You're right. Why don't they understand this? I mean, is it that hard to understand? Yet you might as well be speaking in hieroglyphics or something. I don't know.
$1.99 a day. I think I was in the supermarket and a gallon of distilled water was $1.99. So, I mean, technically you could get rid of, many health conditions. I mean, even high blood pressure goes away extremely fast with water only fasting. It's just going back to simplicity, really, when you think about it. I mean,
no, I don't think there's anything more powerful than water-only therapeutic fasting. I mean, it's just beyond powerful. It just targets every metabolic pathway in the cancer cells. I mean, their whole metabolic economy is shut down. I mean, it's just like, why would you want to use anything else other than this? You know,
I mean, it all goes back to really addressing the root cause of the problem to begin with. Would you agree that the root cause of the majority of the health conditions, degenerative conditions that we suffer from today, are an accumulation of toxins and chemicals from the food, the air, the water, and that just wreak havoc on the digestive system and shut the gut symbiosis down, as well as congestion of the liver, and just one thing snowballs after another?
Yeah, well, I think the whole thing is systemic inflammation, which is created by all the different foods. It gives you, and that's another important biomarker that I tell people, C-reactive protein. It's a marker for systemic inflammation. That should be the first thing that people should get, not their cholesterol or this other stuff. Get a C-reactive protein measurement. Then they'll know whether or not their body is inflamed or not. And if it is, then therapeutic ketosis, water-only fasting will bring that right back down to normal. Important issue to remember is how those toxins and foods and imbalances actually disturb the metabolic homeostasis of the cell. And what I have found in almost every case, these imbalances damage the efficiency of mitochondrial respiratory function in a population of cells in a given organ or tissue. And so it all comes back to energy balance. The second law of thermodynamics is entropy, disorder, right? And we're all going to die. No one's immortal. The question is how do you delay entropy? And you delay entropy by keeping your metabolic systems as healthy as possible. And that all comes back to the mitochondria, because the mitochondria are the organelle that maintains a metabolic homeostasis. So you keep the mitochondria healthy, you significantly reduce your risk for almost every kind of a chronic disease, type of vascular disease, and cancer. This is pretty much retinal degeneration. What is it? Different retinal diseases. You can bundle in and manage the vast majority. Our country is at risk for the monies that we're spending on healthcare. This is nuts. I mean, we could be having better roads and infrastructure, yet we're spending all of our money on these drugs and things that are just Band-Aids on top of a bigger problem. You know,
yeah,
it's just.
I know. And I've even read case studies of severe Alzheimer's and Parkinson's being completely reversed in 9 months with different types of therapeutic water-only fasting regimens. So amazing things happen when you allow the body to heal itself and change your lifestyle and do the things necessary.
I think new knowledge is coming. You have to be understandable for the majority of people, so they know when they're doing this, what exactly is happening in their body. And as I said, the GKI index is a simple biomarker to let people know whether or not their hard work in this, self restrictive state is actually paying off. So they have this knowledge, they have this gratification to know, hey, my hard work has really put me in the right metabolic state, and I feel good about that. And here's so before that, we were in the dark. We didn't know. Oh, I did that. I really do. I don't know. It's like, oh, I did this. It's really painful. Now at least you have a number, a biomarker number, to tell people, hey, I'm there. And there's a guy on the web, Damian Blankensop. He tested all of our stuff and he plotted it on the web, and he showed exactly how this works. And he was able to validate everything that we've been saying with his own test, and he published it on the web. You can see his GKI go down, all of the different biomarkers, the things, how healthy your blood sugar, your HDL goes up, your LDL goes down. I mean, all of the things that we would consider really healthy happen when you're in these states of therapeutic ketosis. And there you have, again, blood work. Blood work tells you. It's not that complicated.
How low have you seen blood glucose levels go during ketosis?
Well, in my book, my student Julian Arthur got down to 39 milligrams per deciliter, and that would be catastrophic for most people. No, you're going to die. Not if you're in ketosis. If you're in ketosis, you can push your blood sugars down. As a matter of fact, we have a experiment going on in the lab now. We think we got because we do insulin potentiation with the cancer. So people say, oh, therapeutic fasting doesn't get your blood sugar down enough to kill the tumor cells. Oh yeah, it does. If you do insulin potentiation, it does. You can push your blood sugars down real low, down to 10, 20 milligrams. Oh, that you killed? No, you don't. As long as your brain is burning those ketones, you don't do that on a full stomach. Therapeutic fasting alone will not bring your blood ketones up high enough to tolerate a good insulin potentiation therapy. So again, you got to, and we're making direct, because we know ketones block hypoglycemia. So if your brain is burning ketones, because that's what you're really frightened about, because hypoglycemia makes you go unconscious and you have seizures and you could die. But if you're burning the ketones, you completely bypass hypoglycemic incidences. So how low can you get your blood sugar? You can get your blood sugar really low. I mean, Dominic D'Agostino got his down to 25 milligrams per deciliter when he was on a 4-day water-only fast, and he drank his ketone supplement material. And he showed me the glucose monitor. He took a picture with his cell phone and sent it to me. And he told me, beat that number.
Well, no, because when I was charting my blood glucose and ketones every single day, there was one day where my glucose levels got down to 40. And I mean, I was feeling fine. I was feeling great. But I had so many people and comments, you need to go to the emergency room. You're going to die. You're going to die. And I said, no, that's not the way it is. And I think the medical profession still believes that, you will be in that coma, that diabetic coma or something, if your blood glucose goes below 40 or 50 or 60 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, they don't read the literature. I mean, the problem is that the papers are already out there. It's been shown that ketones prevent hypoglycemia. They think ketones are ketoacidosis. That's what they were trained to do in medical school. They're not looking at the health benefits of therapeutic ketosis and knowing that the brain burns ketones. And once the brain burns ketones, you can push your blood sugars down real low. We're trying to get in the mice, we're trying to get down to the zero range. So in other words, having the animal completely in a therapeutic state and on these diets. And then where's the cancer going to get any cancers? The cancers are screwed in that zone, man. They just can't. There's no way where are they going to get the glucose. And the other thing that becomes very interesting, when you push your blood sugar down that low, every cell in your body, I don't know about every cell, but a lot of cells, they actually upregulate glucose transporters. And that means they really want that glucose. So they actually send out more receptors to grab it, but they're all burning the ketones. So it's like glucose is a preferred fuel, but they can use an alternative fuel if they have to. But in order to get more glucose, the cells actually become desiring the glucose. So they put out more receptors, and we have biochemical evidence to support that. So if you're a cancer in there and you need that glucose, and that glucose is essential for your survival, and now all the normal cells in the body also want the same fuel. Now your normal cells are competing directly against the tumor cell for the fleetingly small amount of that glucose. So you can demolish these cancer cells so effectively once you know how to pull the strings on the metabolism. And I tell you, this is one of the most elegant, beautiful. Once people understand how all this works, they're going to be hard pressed not to want to do this, and we'll take the sting out of this too, so we can get into these states with not too much difficulty. But I tell you, it's an incredible new field that's going to open up. And of course, everybody's going to want to know what gene changes, what's happening here, simply to kill the tumor cells and give this person another opportunity to live longer. Let these other guys worry about what gene changes are taking place in that. We know, how do you feel? The bottom line is, how do you feel?
Exactly.
You don't need a $300,000 gene array to tell you how you feel. One other thing I forgot to mention in our paper that we published, the Press Pulse strategy for the metabolic management of cancer, which is open access. We also had a section on there on stress management, which is also extremely important for therapeutic fasting as well. Many people are stressed out, especially with cancer. They have a sense of impending doom, and they have depression. They have all kinds of things. and fasting with stress management is extremely important. You can do yoga, using different things. You don't have to be, moderate exercise is important when you do therapeutic fasting. I don't think you have to be, sitting or laying down in a room. I think that it's stress management, water only therapeutic fasting. All of these things can play a very important role in how therapeutic you actually can get into. So it's a whole body experience. It's not just, for the mind or one part of your body. It's a whole body thing. And we hit upon a lot of that in the Press Pulse thing, along with the water only therapeutic fasting. And I think it'll probably work for most of the chronic diseases, as you've indicated.
No, thanks a lot. I mean, I do want to reiterate that point with the rest, or the at least non-stress part. I was trying to work the first week that I was doing my water-only fast, and ended up having extreme stress and anxiety because a family member got in a car accident and another family member had a stroke that same week that I started. And it was just, you gotta, stress just shuts the immune system down instantaneously and just causes the inability to heal properly. So, I mean, that's a whole nother topic that we're dealing with today with all the media and everything else. I mean, we're living in this chronic state of sympathetic stress state, which also wreaks havoc on the bowel as well. But just one more quick question. Speaking of that, what kind of water do you recommend when people are doing their water-only fasting?
Well, some people used to recommend distilled water because we don't know what kind of impurity. I would say any water is probably good as long as it's pure. But some waters have chemicals in it. You got to be careful because there's certain they put fluoride. It's some waters you have to be careful, but you can never go wrong with distilled water.
I agree. That's pretty much what everybody's used in the past, distilled water. So, all right, well, great. Thank you so much. Have a relaxing, warm day as much as you possibly can, and I really appreciate, and all of us really appreciate all of your work. And I will be posting your social media links as well as the information about donations under the video, and more information that people
I think the Single Cause, Single Cure Foundation is the foundation that's been supporting metabolic therapy for cancer, which is Travis Christofferson's foundation. So it's good. People have supported our work through that foundation. It's one of the few. The George U Foundation is another one. There's not many out there that really support metabolic therapies. Most of it's it's the same because many of the cancer foundations and societies, they collect the money and then they go and do gene sequencing and this kind of stuff. The same stuff they've been doing for 20 years doesn't work, right? Yet they continue to fund it. It's like, what's going on here? So once they start funding metabolic therapies, there's going to be a dramatic change in this whole, and we'll do cancer first because it's the most life-threatening. Then you can move on to Alzheimer's disease and all these other diseases. But if you get the big dog and you knock that big dog down, you'd be surprised how this will run through everything. But once that dog, I don't know how long it's going to take. There's a lot of resistance to doing this kind of stuff, as you know. But it's right, and it works, and it's based on very strong science. So and that's what makes it nice. Anyway, I'll let you go. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Appreciate it.